Hi and welcome to Tripod, the audio advertising podcast. In this episode, we look at the compelling reasons for choosing audio. So why should an advertiser use audio? There's a lot of choices for them in other media. Why audio?
Audio now has kind of like the ability to play more roles on the plan than what it ever did. You know, the main reason is probably still scale when it comes to kind of commercial radio. In that sense, in the fact that the networks and commercial radio as a whole do big numbers, it's still incredibly cost efficient for advertisers to use commercial radio at scale to reach listeners. And that is proven again and again, not only by industry research from the likes of the Radio Centre in terms of econometrics and ROI, return on investment, but also through those clients that regularly use radio with us throughout the year. You know, I will see again and again within their own econometric studies, radio still stands up as being one of the kind of most effective medium in kind of providing ROI for them. So that's a really compelling element because we still feel that, you know, it is still a great way, cost efficient, large scale reach, driving good ROI for clients. So that is a key reason. I think some of the other reasons now is that it can play more of a role in the so-called funnel as you come down. So there is that kind of like, it can do that awareness piece up here. We might have clients who didn't traditionally spend in the audio space. Maybe you're trying to reach high-flying CEOs or CFOs of companies or small to medium enterprise managers and stuff like that. Essentially, that's kind of a, you know, and you don't want to take that big sort of broadcast blanket approach. You kind of want to reach these people more. So we can start to look into data. We can start to look into using targeting segments. We can start to look into kind of like reaching these people through kind of digital listening and digital devices. We can also go to sort of like, you know, people like Matt and look at kind of like podcast content where we can speak more to more specific niche audiences and stuff like this. And I suppose even that comes down to sort of like things like almost conversion and stuff now. So things like in terms of smart speaker, in terms of like asking or doing skills and smart speakers that actually you now interact, and that turns into conversion either in terms of ordering a sample or downloading a voucher. Ask your smart speaker now to download a voucher to your phone. So you're now almost seeing kind of direct response as well. So I think, yes, there's those key reasons, and we talk about scale, we talk about ROI, we talk about connection with listeners, we talk about how, you know, are there ways to drive more direct response. And I think we're in a position where audio can play so many more roles for advertisers than it ever has before.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, particularly where we are now, you know, radio or audio is one of the most trusted mediums there are for consumers. So people trust what they hear on radio, particularly amongst news and speech stations. It's that connection with the presenter. It's a trusted medium. It's a brand safe environment. And radio, what radio or audio is good at also is supporting other media. So it helps drive people to websites. It helps drive, you know, that halo effect of maybe seeing a brand online in a competitive marketplace that may not be a household name, and should I go with that brand? But if people are then hearing that on the radio in that trusted environment, evidence does show that, you know, people trust what they hear on the radio, and as well as advertisers. So as the content, there's that halo effect that comes into advertisers can take advantage of that. What radio is good at is building, you know, response over time as well as immediacy, because radio is consumed differently. So if you see an ad on the television, might have a phone number or go to the website. With radio, or audio, you tend to be doing other things, or out and about, hearing it in car, or doing things in the kitchen, or, you know, podcast listener is headphones and maybe a soloist listen, but you tend to be with other people when you're doing that. The beauty of that is that you seed your message over time. And that comes down to, I know we're going to talk about it, is the importance of creative and the importance of how many times that message should be played to a consumer to enable them for the message to gain recognition, get momentum, and drive the response. But I think the other element, I guess, for advertisers is there's so much choice. Whatever target audience you have, whether you're looking at old, young, there are so many station brands, traditionally via linear radio or digital only stations. And then, as Tom says, combined with that sort of more attribution-based digital audio side of the business and with podcasts, there's building a better response. But I guess it is for advertisers. They think, well, as you say, Matt, there's always choice. Where do I start? And it is having the ability to talk to people that, know the market. And, my advice would be, if you're a new advertiser and you haven't used audio, look into audio, is to test. Don't commit significant funds, because until you test and learn what works and what drives response, because it depends on the product, the service, the immediacy, the need state of the consumer in terms of what you're trying to sell them and what the message is. And I think that is just as important to understand as it is, well, let's use this medium. That is, but yeah, I think it offers something for everybody, whatever your budget or sector that you are in, because it's multifaceted now.
Can audio do anything that other media can't?
Yeah, of course. I think every media has its own strength and weaknesses, to be honest with you. Often the weakness that we'd always get presented by brands or clients that didn't want to touch radio or touch audio would always be, it's non-visual. But again, you can play on those weaknesses and turn them into a strength in terms of, and I'm sure we're going to talk about creative, the old phrase theatre of the mind, and especially in the podcast space, over 90% of people are listening alone and via headphones, so that's a really intimate environment, and you can get the creative right with that. And it's playing on that direct connection that someone has with that content that they're listening to, and that presenter or that personality that's delivering it to them, picking up on a couple of bits that Tom and Howard alluded to as well, in terms of, the trust element of audio and the attention element of audio as well. Particularly in the podcast space, there's some Spotify research that demonstrated that over 50% of audiences trust advertising more if it's been delivered by a host that they have a connection with, and that's one of the highest trust metrics in media, compared to comparatively across the board. So I think being able to tap into that for an advertiser is one of the key reasons as for why they should be using audio, and especially when we live in this world now where there is so much, disinformation and, worry about brand safety. Being able to harness that and in a brand safe environment is key, I think.
It's the only medium that can reach you with your eyes closed, let's face it.
Mm-hmm. You can't turn off your ears. That's what the radio centre
close your ears.
No, that's what the radio centre always says. It's true.
Yeah,
No, indeed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So plenty of reasons to use audio, but which type should you use? More on that in the next episode.